So, hello everyone. Welcome back to the plenary. Even though there's a second event now, two buildings. Thanks for your interest in textiles. We have 1 hour with great guests. So before we start discussing, and I think there will be also time for your questions, that would be really much of my interest for the next hour. I will just briefly and quickly introduce the people to whom we talk in the next 60 minutes. So welcome Philomena John from Cotton Blossom from Tirupur in India. I think she has the longest travel to this congress, so I think big round of applause for her. Thanks for coming. So we get to know some more details about Cotton Blossom, which is a vertically integrated textile group with several global export partners, under which CNA is one of them. I think we will hear some more about this. And the philosophy, she says, is behind that Cotton Blossom is about a win-win situation for everybody who is involved producing textiles. Cotton Blossom holds certificates from Cradle to Cradle Gold, GOTS, God's Dyeing, God's Garments, and Ecotex 100. And you have capacities of up to 3,600 sewing machines, is that right? Okay. So, Philomena John. Second panelist I'd like to introduce is Henning Siedentop. He is founder and CEO of mittlerweile, which he has founded in the year 2014, as far as I know, here in Lüneburg, right? And mittlerweile concentrates on closed loops in production and use, and they work together with Fairtrade. In 2018, you've produced the first sneaker ever with Fairtrade cotton and on a GOTS standard, first sneaker ever. And you won with mittlerweile and yourself several national and international awards regarding your work on textiles. Welcome to our panel, Henning. Last but not least, there is Sanne van der Dung, and thanks for coming. Sanne is started working at EPEA in 2011, EPEA Netherlands, and before she studied plant science at the University of Wageningen, at EPEA, her special interests are in textiles. So she covers a wide area from C2C certification, material health assessment, ABC-X methodology, material supply chain research, and roadmap development. But you're also actively involved with an Indian NGO called Gramina Vikas, which is a society for rural development and is establishing the development of organic cotton in India. Is that right? So thanks for coming and welcome to our panel. So first of all, I'd like to raise the first question to you, Philomena. You told us that you, since some years now, been engaged in the development of cradle-to-cradle products. So maybe you can give us some more idea of how you started with cradle-to-cradle and what the role is now of cradle-to-cradle within Cotton Blossom.
Okay, thank you, Tim. Thank you, Tim. And I'm very happy to be here and talk about cradle-to-cradle. This is all about sustainability, and it's all about, the whole idea is about human beings on Earth. We need to know how we can use the resources and how responsible we have to be, even in all kinds of times, when in plenty or when there is nothing. Cotton Blossom is a family company, and we started the company 14 years ago. I must give you a little background of the company to tell you the idea about how we thought about this whole thing. It's a family company, and we started very small. We sat together and thought, okay, how do we go about doing the business? So we said there are 3 things that we will do. First, it will be a very clean and transparent company. The second point was that we will skill people, because India is full of people and they are not skilled, and skill them. And the third was to empower women. So these are the 3 prongs of Cotton Blossom, and we started with 14 machines. into 1997. So we started, and my first buyer was CNA. And that, I think, was the perfect match. It was like a beautiful marriage, I should say, because the ideas of both the company matched very well. So starting with that, we had this, for water stewardship, we put in a dye house, which recycles the water, and you can drink the water. It's portable at the other end. So that is how we started our dyeing. And the spinning and the other facilities, garmenting, is all completely approved by GOTS and all possible things, because we wanted it to be of international standards. So we started from day one, we started it that way. So, having done that, the energy, the products that came out from Cotton Blossom was always green, because we had windmills that supported the production of the garments. And so when Cradle to Cradle came, and before Cradle to Cradle, C&A brought up a subject that they said, okay, why don't you start with the organic? So we started organic, and our production is completely organic now. And then we also started the C2C. So they came back to say, okay, do C2C. So when C2C came, they came to audit the place. They went around and said, you are there already. So I said, how could it be? Because you're supposed to be a very, stringent certified. He said, yes, except for a few chemicals, dye stuffs that you need to change, you are there, because it was all GOTS approved and things. So that is how the transition happened. I say this story to just tell you that whenever we start something, we should always remember what the outcome of it is and what we leave behind from there. If we do that, that there is no need for all this kind of thing. Everything would be so perfect. And that's how we got into C2C. We do around over 300,000 pieces of T-shirts right now, and it's continuing to grow. So we started with the ladies sector, and now it's already men's and children and everything. So that's how it is. I must say we have a good partner who encourages this. And you need to have brands who put their heart and soul also into a cause like this. And for me, I think C&A was the best match.
I think, thank you. I think in some minutes we should get some more details on how you probably struggle with challenges, or what was the need to do. Handing over to Henning, you're producing products not yet Cradle to Cradle certified, even though the idea of Cradle to Cradle plays a role. Probably you can explain that to us.
Yes, sure. Yeah, I mean, we started mittlerweile in 2014, as Tim already mentioned. It was based out of Lüneburg, where we are right now. It is a spin-off out of the university, and we are a very scientific and knowledge-based driven company. So this means that before we started the company, we did a lot of research, studying papers and scientific work, and we came up with knowledge that doing fair trade and organic certified products at that time, in the combination with the cradle-to-cradle design concept, is what gives us the full aspects of sustainability when it comes to garments made out of cotton. So before we started, actually, as similar to what Philo just said, we studied and thought what to do before we started to act. And that's something I think is very important, because if you just blindly start or try to change something, you just start to run, but apparently you have run into the wrong direction, which we try to avoid. And so we started with a basic solid t-shirt, similar to the ones that Cotton Blossom is producing, made out of fair trade organic cotton. And 1 year, that was in 2015, we launched that product. That is 3 years ago now. And 1 year later, we launched a backpack, which is fair trade and organic certified, and it's one of its kind. It's the only backpack in the world that holds this strong certificates. And I've seen many of the bags here in the conference, which makes me very happy, because 2 years ago this bag wasn't even there. So that's a really nice occasion to see this. And I think because of the bags, it's an item that people wear every day. We became recognition and we got encouraged to go further. And so in the beginning of last year, spring 2017, we launched, we further developed our T-shirt and optimized it with a Cradle to Cradle Gold certified dye stuff and C2C Gold certified sewing thread from Müller from Switzerland, and we made analysis ourselves of electricity and energy used, water treatment. We got all that tests, and that helped us to, like the Cradle to Cradle design concept helped us to optimize our products. And I think that concept was further developed by us by using or very strongly work together with Fairtrade, and for us it's very important that we also work on the social side. So we are paying extra premium to our producers in India that we work with in order to increase the wages, because for us the sustainability approach is also very important on the social side, which is something that for us is as important as the environment, the material health and the economic side. And yeah, just as Tim said, this spring we launched a sneaker, and again it's a world novelty. It's the only sneaker in the world that is FT organic certified, and took us almost 2 years to develop it. We did it when we just launched the backpack. We were already working on the sneaker, but it took us 2 years. It was very difficult and very expensive, but yeah, now it's there, and I've seen it here also, so that's very nice. And yeah, so the rest maybe we can discuss later. Thanks.
Thanks. Thanks for your insights. Very interesting road. Coming over to you, Sanne. So probably you could tell us a bit more about the projects. What I've presented was a bit abstract, so maybe you can give us more information about the projects you do at EPEA and what your part is.
Yeah, sure, thanks. I'll be happy to talk a bit more about the projects that I'm doing and that we're doing at EPEA. So I'm working from the Netherlands office in Eindhoven, and we're involved with many different projects. So the beautiful thing about Cradle to Cradle is that it encompasses all sectors that we can think of. So textile is one of them, and textiles is very close to my heart. I'm totally passionate about textiles, because it's so incredibly complicated, which makes it so incredibly interesting. So that's a thing of me. Then at EPEA we are working with customers in different sectors of the textile chain. So we're working on workwear, for example, with Van Puijenbroek, but we're also working we worked with JBC on garments. With Hunter Douglas, we work on window fabrics. We work on optimization of different dye stuffs, of different textile auxiliaries, of different ways of how to design the product, design for disassembly, product passports, material health statements, anything you can imagine. Of course, we're also doing certification, but really as part of the bigger picture. So as one of the tools to get where we want to go. So that is my work at EPEA, and next to that I'm very much involved with organic cotton farmers in India. For me, it's like a beautiful way to see where it all starts. So it's starting in the field. In this case, tribal farmers living under the $2 poverty line. This is what it's all about. It goes through the whole chain, ending up at our body. We are wearing it, and of course we have to find good ways to recycle it afterwards. So this whole chain, I'm involved in it. I'm passionate about it, and I'm like seeing the challenges and the opportunities there as well.
Thanks. So, probably coming to the challenges, I'm probably everybody's interested about those challenges, because you've found ways around those challenges. But you said there were not too many. But so, what about your company? How did it evolve to that point that you produce cradle to cradle now, and just before it was not too far to cradle, you said. So at some point there must be some challenges, or?
Yes, there were a few challenges because whenever you get one certification, every year certification standards are coming up. I mean, it's only getting more stringent. And when it's cradle to cradle, it was something that is much above every other standard that we already had. We have over 8 certifications. But and this was only in where the dye stuff was there. Although the dye stuff that we were using were all GOTS, for cradle to cradle it had to be a little better. So then we had to talk to the chemical people and the dye house, the dye stuff people, and they had to select, and that's why we could only have 5 colors in the beginning. Very difficult, and with 5 colors is what we started, and then with 5 colors, and every other day we used to wait from these dye stuff people to say, okay, is it possible? Is there a new color coming up? Is there a new color coming up? And it was like you're waiting for a baby, that kind of thing. It was that, and from 5 today we can do so many colors. Prints were just not possible, and what is a t-shirt or a top without a print? Embroidery, sewing thread. Sewing thread was all polyester, like it was discussed in the morning. We had to think, okay, let's make sewing thread. So we had to do tensions and this and that, and so many things, dye it all in-house to make sewing thread. So the garment was completely made, completely made from cotton to thing, completely, and then it was perfect for C2C because it got tested and everything passed. But now we have a big range of colors. We can do a lot of printing. We can do a lot of embroideries. So it has grown. So it happens that it changes, So what is there today, I'm sure by next year when the C2C, I'm sure we'll have so much more to say. And this is only with cotton I'm talking about.
And what role do other stakeholders play? I mean, is that work you do on your own, or who's helping you with that?
Currently we do it. I must say that we do. We make sure that it happens, but except for the dye stuffs, we cannot do anything about it. But since it's a vertical company, we are able to manage it well.
Henning, you said you use certified materials, so probably you can tell us a bit more about the role of certified materials, even though your products are not yet cradle-to-cradle certified, but GOTS, fair trade.
Yes, I mean, when we design a product or when we think about a new product, we think about what are the components normally used, and then we put the components on the table, and then we talk to the suppliers. What you can offer to us, like similar as Philo has just said, and then we go through the bill of material list, and in the sneaker, for example, it were 24 components. So and then we go to the supplier and ask them what is the best environmental friendly solution you have, and then we ask the next question: do you have a certificate? If they don't have, we ask them, do you have test reports? If they don't have it, we discuss with the certifying body or with the experts or the laboratories and the supplier together what we need to test in order to incorporate that material into the accepted and certified materials. And then we send it for testing. We discuss who's going to pay for it, and then it will be tested, and then we approve it or it fails. And if it fails, we continue. we adjust the formula. We talk to the supplier, and we test it again, and sometimes this happens up to 10 times, so it becomes quite costly. But there are a lot of materials available, but there are also many materials that are not available. There are materials that are available but not available to us. So it's all kind of scenarios, and for us it's important that at least we fulfill the standards that we already are certified by Fair Trade Cotton and the Global Organic Textile Standard, but we always ask the question to the suppliers, how close are you to the cradle-to-cradle standards? And we try to make a comparison, and then we make a study, a feasibility study, And only when we know that the product has the potential to get certified according to Cradle, at least on the gold level, which is for us the only thing that is achievable, because the rest is mainly covered by the other tools. We go for that product, even though it might not be possible today, but we don't produce a product where we are not convinced that we can get there on our journey towards a circular fashion.
So, thank you. Sanne, from your... Okay, there's applause, of course, please. Sanne, from your experience as a consultant, I mean, there's companies doing great job in changing their textile supply chain. What do you think, what hinders other companies not doing cradle to cradle and not doing fair trade or GOTS? What do you think, what really hinders them to go down that road from your perspective?
Yeah, that's a really good question. What hinders them? Also, maybe like what stops them or what demotivates them along the line. So I think when we talk about it, for sure, when we talk about certification, at the end you need to be grasped by the vision of cradle to cradle. So somehow this needs to have resonated with you, with the company you work for. It needs to have like enlightened you in a way that you want to go forward with it, because you need an enormous amount of stamina. Like there's going to be ups and downs, there's going to be hurdles, there's going to be lots of questions that you need to be asking, lots of no's or closed doors that you're receiving. So you need to be persistent, and you need to be like never tired, because you're actually never done. This is a continuous process. So even when your certificate is handed over, you've received it, then the work starts. Then you get going on your optimization process. Then you get going on what needs to be done next. So I think in a lot of cases this can be quite daunting. You're never finished. You're never done, and you're dealing in an imperfect setting. That is your basis, and you're trying to make it perfect. So you're going to be frustrated all the time.
Mm-hmm. All right. From your perspective, do you see any most or very important unsolved questions in the year 2018? Because we were discussing, changing the whole textile sector and asking this question, and some say probably it's a matter of technology. Is it?
Yes, so my personal opinion is that it's an issue about transparency, but we haven't solved how to deal with this. So all of us are asking for more transparency in the chain, and we want to open the black box. But in what way? And when we found out what is there, how will we deal with that? So again, it's this imperfection that we're living in or dealing with, that we're trying to bring to light. Transparency is, I think, really one of the big issues in here, but we just don't know how to do that. So that I see that one as one of the really big challenges. We're all asking for it, but what does it mean or how does it work? We don't know.
So handling over the question, what about transparency from your perspective? Probably Philomena could say something, or Henning, or both.
Transparency, the question of transparency, I think, is one of the main reasons, if you speak to suppliers and manufacturers, is the question of cost. So if there is a cost involved, somebody has to bear that cost. Somebody has to take it or share it or do something about it. But if that doesn't happen, then people don't want to open up and tell you. See, if you're able, if everything is open and you know, okay, this is what it costs, then you could speak about it and come to a conclusion, okay, this is how it will be, or the product will be, or this is what it cost me for the certification for the whole year, and let's share the cost or something. But if you don't do that, then asking somebody for transparency when you don't want to accept it, or you don't want to listen to that part of it, it's disturbing. You cannot get transparency if it's not a two-way thing. You have to be open, really open.
So Henning, something to add, or? Any other? No, it's fine? Okay, he's fine with it. So I think after talking about half an hour, maybe there's questions in the audience from your side, and we would have some time to collect some of your questions. Is there any questions in our audience? Not yet. No questions? Okay, so you still have some. Have you seen one? Okay. So don't worry. So Henning, probably you can tell us a bit more about your challenges by building up. Can we still say startup? I don't know. It's 4 years old now. So probably you can tell us a bit more about your challenges or the solutions you came up with.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, you can call it a startup. I mean, we called it always a small business from day one because it's management-owned company, so we would not sell it. So it's not something highly risky as a startup. We are doing something very down to earth. We buy garments and we sell garments, and in between there's a margin. And for us, what makes it innovative are the products and the materials we use, but it's not at a high risk, so it's not something very unsecure. So that's why we would call it a small business. And yeah, of course, there are many challenges that we had to overcome. And I mean, first of all, you have to imagine India at least is 7 to 9 hours flight away, depending where your suppliers are, because basically it's a continent, it's not a country. It's huge with many states and districts, many languages, many different time zones. So without the internet, we wouldn't even be possible to do what we are doing, because we are a very small team. We have a very lean management and company. So there's a lot of discussions, and actually my customers are not the customers here that I sell the bags and the garments to. My customers are my producers, my agents in India, my suppliers, the sub-suppliers, the chemical producers and process chemical producers, because I have to convince them with what we are doing, because we are much smaller than a company like C&A. So if I go there and ask for 10,000 backpacks, they say, this is nice to have, but do you have a good order for us? And then you have to convince them with what you are doing, and then they see what you are doing, and then apparently they feel, oh, that might be a good idea. And they are also very interested to improve their production. And so again and again, convincing and persistingly asking for test reports, for material certifications, for social standards, going there twice a year and bringing in many people that will do checks and also report about it, inviting them to come here. So building up the relationship to our partners and producer in India is and was and will be the most or the biggest challenge, but not in a negative way, but in a positive way, because once we have built up that relationship, it's just starting to get better and better. So in Asia, they do much more think in a long-term oriented way than we do, and I like that a lot, because it's something that lasts and that helps us. But that is maybe the biggest challenge we had and we still have to face, because we are working in different cultures and different mindsets. And whenever I go to India, I try to understand that I'm the alien coming in, and they do the right thing and I do the wrong thing, and that works.
And not too often company representatives tell us about the surplus they pay regarding their workers and social welfare. Probably you can tell us a bit more about your concept of using fair trade, concepts of living wages. Probably you can give us some more information about that.
Yeah, sure. So last year we introduced a program where we said we would like to participate on the well-being of the workers, which means that my brand should directly link to the work of the workers, because the fair trade cotton standard is only about the social standards and the payment of the farmers and the extra bonus, plus minimum social standards within the entire supply chain that are also covered by GOTS. They're very good because they respect the law of the land, but we wanted to go beyond. So we decided to get engaged with Fair Trade International and 2 other German brands to in a pilot project to actually voluntarily pay more. And we were the only brand and the first brand who said, okay, we put 10% extra on any price that my producer would tell me. And that money was, last year that was around, we did it for the garments, to 25,000 euros. We distributed among the tailors, which were at that time 450 tailors. And all of them got a extra bonus, which was quite meaningful to them. When I went there, they wrote down what they did with the money. They put it on the main entrance of the factory. Some gave flowers to me. It was like really an honor to go there and see what they did with the money. And surprisingly, they did not do anything special. They did basic things like buying medicine, buying school clothes. They put all this, what they did with the money, and that showed me that actually this living wage concept is something we should work towards, because I think the main challenge for the future in the textile industry after the material health, which we can cover quite well with Cradle to Cradle, is the participation of the well-being of the workers and the wages, because equality in the world, especially in textile where it's so interrelated, and the global approach is one of the key challenges I think that we have to overcome in the next years. Yeah.
Thank you. You want to add something to it, Barbara?
Yeah, I would like to add something, because it's a big gap at the moment in the certification standards, that we are not asking for living wages at the moment. So like it is a holistic concept, and it should be a holistic concept, which would mean that not only the materials are healthy and products are reusable, and that we can have drinking water after production and renewable energy, but also that all of these different persons in the whole textile supply chain, from the farmer on the field to the worker in the CMT in the factory, get the appreciation that they deserve. If you see how many people are involved in producing a single garment, it's unbelievable. And how much we're paying for it these days, it's also unbelievable.
Thank you. In the meantime, is there any questions? Just raise your hands and we could have some questions from the audience. Ah, there's one. Okay, so probably we start with the audience now. Is there a possibility? Long way, actually. Should have played music. Okay.
Hi. We were discussing that in the interactive session before. There was something that Henning mentioned, that currently in the C2C certification there is nothing like packaging or transportation or stuff like that involved. What would you say, is that a possibility for the future, that like every aspect of the supply chain, including everything that has to do with logistics, which is a big factor in environmental impact, is that something that can be included, will be included, and into the whole supply chain?
Is that a question to
All
everyone?
of you, yeah, because all of you are working in the textile supply chain, and especially you, Sanne, working with certification. Is that something that is in the future for that?
So you mentioned two things, packaging and transportation. So packaging is part of a cradle-to-cradle certification, but only to a certain level, and at some points it can be voluntarily to include it or not. In terms of transportation, cradle-to-cradle, the vision, the mindset has a certain way of looking at that, in the sense that only at, for example, platinum level, transportation will be included. But there will be more drive towards like finding ways of having the good kind of transportation, and then we don't have to be cutting on kilometers or looking at CO2 emissions. So there, I do understand where your question comes from, but it's a bit of a different approach that we're taking from a cradle-to-cradle perspective. Of course, you still want to be doing those calculations, and you want to see where you can be more efficient in order to to make the transition, to make the transformation towards like using the right fuels or the right mobility ways. So it's there. Yeah, that's a bit two-sided in that sense. And at the same time, so as I was mentioning, we're trying to capture the cradle-to-cradle philosophy in a certification standard, which is an issue to start with. So we're now in version 3.1. We will go to version 4 for sure. There will be a version 5. So it's like an iterative process, almost like we have the certification levels being an invitation for improvement. The same goes for the certification standard. It's trial and error, so to say. But yeah, thanks for bringing up the question for sure.
Yeah, I think it's a very important topic. Like, I mean, if nobody would maybe buy a fruit if the skin doesn't look nice, and everybody who's doing C2C has the mindset, as we just heard, that you have to think holistically about what you are doing. So I think everybody has the C2C design concept in their mind will also think about what is the best solution for that topic. So luckily we don't have all eggs in one basket. We have different certificates, like for the Global Organic Textile Standard, which is very specific on garments. They have stricter criteria on the packaging. So we already, they make recommendations, and they exclude certain kinds of plastic and ingredients. They make recommendations about each and any hang tag that you put on your product. So there are a lot of restriction, and all of them have to be included in the material list for getting and issuing the transaction certificate. But it's also, I have to admit that there's room for improvement, especially from the producers, to give us materials that we can use much better to pack our products in a more sustainable way. Like, our main focus is the garment itself, but obviously it needs some packaging in order to reach you in a condition that you are willing to pay for it, what we are asking for it. So yeah, it's a very good question actually.
So one more question to Philomena. You told me that you want to see the textile sector being the most healthy and the most environmental friendly sector. What do you think? What are necessary steps now to get other partners involved, to get more stakeholders involved? I mean, you are working in a vertically integrated company, so you can handle many of those issues. Probably regarding your philosophy at the company, where do you see difference to other companies in various countries, not only in India, Bangladesh, and Turkey? I mean, there's many places where textiles are produced right now.
I think the responsibility, the answer to this question is the responsibility of the brands. If the brands say that they want a certain kind of standard, the producing countries will do that. This is very important because they will do that, and therefore the brands should come forward. Like for example, if there is only one brand doing a certain thing, then it is not reaching all the people. The people are thinking, what is this one odd thing here? So it has to be uniform. It has to happen at the same time. People should become very aware of it. It is the brands. The brands is the only person who can make the change, because all producing countries produce for some reason to some country. They are not. If they are producing for themselves, they know what they want. But if they are producing for somebody, then there is a requirement, and that requirement has the producing country will hold to. So it is important that the brands first make up their minds. Okay, I want a sustainable product. I want this product, and this is how I want to have it in my stores. This is the percentage of things I want it in a certain way. Whatever it may be. Even the packaging, for example, I see some packaging is so. I know the cost of that packaging because it's being bought there. So you can imagine the amount of, within a minute, you just open it and you throw it away. But so when you see these things, you know, it's quite scary. So who does it? Are the designers or the design people who are involved in all these things really thinking about this to make sure that they use as little as possible as required? Because I think we are too fast in all this thing. Even if you want a drop of water, even if one drop of water falls to the ground, it takes so many years for that drop of water to come back as water again to your table. So nobody thinks of these things, you know. So when you pluck a cotton and the number of years that the number of days it goes through the water, and then you buy a T-shirt for a price that you cannot believe, and you throw it away just like that. Imagine the number of people involved. Imagine the impact on the environment. It's shocking. That is why consciously people should become aware. They should. It can change only if you change it. You know, individually you need to change. You have to make the effort.
What I find interesting is that you say the responsibilities to the brands, not to the customer. Probably you can add some point to this, because many people talk about the customers. You talk about the brands now.
Yeah, I would say the brand, because the brand brings the product to the customer. The customer doesn't make a product. They ask for a product. Okay, I want a T-shirt. How you bring it to them? That is for the brand to do. It's for the brand. I think it is the brand's responsibility. It's completely the brand's responsibility to bring the right product to the market for the people. The people will accept it, definitely. You have it in your hands, do it right. That's all I have to say.
Do it right, okay. So, doing it right, is there probably another question from the audience? There's one more hand. Yeah, we're happy to get this. There's a second one, third one, fourth. Okay, come on, guys. I asked half an hour ago. Okay, probably we collect them all. There's 15 minutes left, so probably we can make 20 out of it. But so we collect them all. Yeah, I think we listen to them all and then we try to answer them. Okay. Does it work?
Hello?
Yes.
I just want to challenge you a little bit, because
a bit louder, please.
I want to challenge you a little bit.
Much louder.
Much louder. Okay, I'll try to shout now. We have been approached by entrepreneurs, especially in the global south. You know, little startups which have amazing ideas, have amazing materials, and would like to do the next step. You know, serving the global market. Thing is, for them, we have to have a certificate. And the next thing is, for them, we can't pay. So they are limited. Is there any possibility for entrepreneurs which, you know, I don't want to be, I don't want to play devil's advocate, but, you know, are more flexible than big brands, come up with amazing ideas, but how can we get them as well? How can we support them in terms of certification for doing better?
Mm-hmm. Okay, thanks. First question. We collect all the others, please. So who's next?
Yeah, I have a question regarding knowledge, because you mentioned that the Cradle to Cradle certificate is very, very holistic, and I can imagine that a lot of the knowledge goes beyond the typical knowledge you have in your fields. So where do you get all the knowledge that you need for water stewardship, all the knowledge in terms of chemistry, that you need to get a certificate in the end and to have a total positive impact in the end?
Okay, thank you. So there were 2 or 3 hands over there who were raising it in the very first place. So we take them and then we try to answer them all.
So a question towards Henning. Can you point out the biggest challenge, or just one specific challenge, why you're not Cradle to Cradle certified yet? Is there a challenge when you're with all respect, a fairly small company? It seems like you're making a lot of effort to look into the material cycles and seeking different certifications. But the Cradle to Cradle certification, isn't that, how should I put it? Isn't that encouraging manufacturers to get to the gold certificate, as you were pointing out that you wanted to achieve that?
Okay, so challenges on why not C2C certified yet. So there's one more, last question.
I would like to ask Sanne, in general, about what Philomena just said, that the brands, they should ask for betterment. No? So the brands, they are the responsible ones. And I just would like to know your opinion about why the companies, they should ask for this betterment, where the pressure is. If it would be regulation, if it would be like the pressure from customers in society, or maybe just really like conscious and responsibility, or rather would be in this point business opportunity.
Okay, so probably we start with this question to Sanne.
Okay, regarding to that question, first thing that comes up in my mind is so intrinsic motivation. So we're dealing with a lot of companies that are family owned, that really resonate with the concept and that want to do something with it. So that's also what we've been doing with quite a number of partners. Of course, we also see now that there are some companies that are entering that are mostly interested in having cradle-to-cradle certification, and you see a different approach in projects there as well. But I would say foremost intrinsic motivation, because you're going to be ahead of time in terms of legislation. You're going to create new business opportunities. You're going to have the opportunity to differentiate. So all of that is there. But it's something also that sparked within, at least that's my personal opinion.
Thank you. So there was the first question, coming to that. Startups from the Global South, they need certificates. What about the payment for that? How can we contribute to development in startups, in small companies? Probably, is that a question for Henning? I don't know.
Yeah, I can try. I mean, first of all, I think it's a miracle that people always think all certificates are expensive. It depends what you certify, by whom, and for which purpose, and in which scale you're planning to use it. So I think rather than paying for it, is the knowledge of what you do is already fulfilling the standard that you think you need in order to market your product. But of course, you need some money to get materials certified and to get them launched. But I think I think it would be a great idea to support startups from areas or from sectors that don't have the financial backbone to launch their materials, because there are genius ideas out there in the world that we might have not come across. So we need to support them. So that would be great. But what is very important is that the invention or the technology is ready to scale, because else it's a nice and beautiful idea and can be adapted, but if we can't use it in an industrial way, and that is mainly the burden that I have seen in many startups that do innovation, then we can't use it in the production, because the production has certain rules to follow.
Anybody wants to add something to that question?
Yeah, I would like to add something in terms of the costing of the certification. So it already has been mentioned today. So there's an enormous amount of work that goes into certification. And of course, there's a lot of, so when we look at EPEA, there's a lot of scientists looking into the recipes, doing ABCX assessments on these different CAS numbers of dyes, for example. But still, I'm triggered by a question: what if the bigger companies would pay a small bit more, then these startups could maybe have a different fee? So, I think it's interesting to think about these things. At the end of the day, there's lots of work involved. So there needs to be some sort of compensation for that. But at the same time, we're trying to provide these building blocks, or to provide alternatives, so that it doesn't have to be so expensive and so inaccessible. But yeah, it's an issue for sure.
Thank you. So, Philomena, the question of knowledge. So, where to get it all from regarding water, regarding chemistry? So, that was one question raised. So, where do we get all the knowledge from, actually, to change our processes in the very tiny details as well?
Yes, I don't know if I'm able to answer that question fully, but I can very clearly say something. The natural resources that we use are limited, and definitely as responsible people, we need to know how much we need to have, how much we can use, and I think that bit of it I know, because if we don't, we will not have it for the next generation to come. This is very important. We need to make sure that the next generation who comes are able to enjoy what we are doing today in a free way. Because if you don't, and answering a question about the brands not being responsible, yes, the brands have to take responsibility, and I think also the awareness in schools, like it was mentioned this morning, children should be made aware that these are the basic things that are important to get into this whole thing. It is a cycle, and we need to respect that. The other part of it, I don't think I'm qualified to answer.
I think Henning wants to add something.
Yeah, sure. So, I mean, first of all, there's a lot of knowledge already there. I think Nora mentioned it early this morning or yesterday evening. So, first of all, reading or getting a waste knowledge on sustainability is important, in my opinion, to understand what is the role of, for example, Cradle to Cradle, or of fair trade or organic, because it's only part of an entire sustainable understanding. And then, of course, I mean, knowledge, we are here to share knowledge, so talking to people who have the knowledge. So I don't know everything, but I know many people who know a lot of things, and all together they know many things. And if you see it as a puzzle, you get a lot of information, and at some way you have to have people that you trust too, that have a certain reputation, and you learn from them. And yeah, then when you understand that concept, then you can also share it. Like, we published just a book at Springer. It's called Sustainable Fashion. We wrote a chapter of 11 pages, so you can also have a look in detail what we are doing and how we are doing it. And Otto and Chibo and Philippa K. and Hugo Boss, they're also sharing their views, H&M, on how they do sustainability. And this kind of things help, and I keep doing it. I have to update myself each and any time, because things are changing fast, and it's not, you don't reach a point where you have the knowledge and then you just do what you do, but you consistently have to keep going and inform yourself. But yeah, it's of course a privilege also that we are able to have that knowledge and to have education that teaches us this kind of things, which not everybody in the world have, of course.
So there was one specific question to Henning. So last question was, why are you not C2C certified yet? So I think I need to ask that question.
So sustainability is also about economics, and I studied business administration, international business, entrepreneurship, and business development. So a lot of business, and it's also about the money. I mean, what sense would it make if I spend all my money on something that I don't get any return at the moment? It doesn't mean that I don't want to go for it, and I will do it definitely. But for give you an example, I invested 100,000 euros investment R&D to make that sneaker. I could have taken almost the same amount to get the C2C certificate, but mainly only for my garments. What about my bags and sneakers? So we are a young company, and I can't spend 10% of my turnover just for a certificate that accept us. Sorry to say this, but a majority does not know yet. And for me, it's a company and a quality approach to watch what I do internally, to teach my staff, my suppliers, my partners, and my customers. And if it's supported, and if we continuously grow, a few years from now, we will have those certificates. So I think it's a matter of time, but everything at its time, step by step. So yeah, that would be the answer.
I think Sanne wants to add something to it.
So yeah, I would like to comment on that because so it has already been mentioned before. It's expensive. It's lengthy. It can take a year. It's difficult. It's tedious. This Cradle to Cradle certification. But at the same time, there's so much work and knowledge involved in it that it's not just a certificate. It's not just a label. There's heaps of scientists that were involved in either a material health assessment or looking at water effluent, which it's knowledge that normally you don't have yourself. For example, EPEA has been building on this knowledge for the last 30 years. So I'm sort of like looking at this in two ways. I absolutely, for sure, understand why you're saying what you're saying. I totally understand it's a lot of money, but at the same time, it's also an intrinsic quality statement, and it's a baseline, and it's something that you can build further on. It's an investment for sure, and I wish the investment was less, but the investment is there for a reason, and that is because of all of this work that goes into it, because it's a holistic standard. If it wasn't like that, then we would be having a different conversation. We would be asking ourselves why certain elements are not in the certification standard. So I'm having mixed feelings about it. I understand it at one hand, and also I see the amount of work and expertise that goes into it. Yeah, it's just not so easy.
Okay. Thank you very much, guys. I think it felt like some closing remarks. Cradle to Cradle is not just a label, but there is a label. And that's something I think we definitely need to differentiate. That's the role of the Cradle to Cradle Association here at the Congress as well, because we're not an organization pushing only certification. It's really about the idea, really about the school of thought, and that's why we're eager to hear not only from companies doing Cradle to Cradle certified products, but also listen to companies who do a high quality standard and use Cradle to Cradle materials, or try to adopt the philosophy and bring them into practice. So I think in some cases it's about investing money, in some other cases it's investing time, like we do in education or networking with our organization. Even though I think to really sum it up, everyone in this room really knows that there's much more investment to do financially to change our running business systems, and I think time-wise and educational-wise as well to really change society. So thank you all for coming. Thanks for the discussion, and we continue here in 15 minutes with our keynotes. Thank you.